Marcus didn't stand out. That was the first thing anyone would tell you. He didn't lead meetings, he didn't make noise, and he didn't draw attention. He just showed up, early, every single night, put on his faded high-vis vest, and got to work in the shadows of the graveyard shift. While the world slept, Marcus kept the factory alive. He oiled machines that would have broken down in days, adjusted settings others ignored, and reorganized the supply shelf that always ended up a mess by end of shift. It was thankless, repetitive work. And yet, he did it like it mattered. Like it meant something. His co-workers respected him, quietly. Not the kind of respect you post about online, the kind that builds slowly, night after night, when you realize someone else already handled the problem before you even knew it existed. New hires followed his lead without being told to. He wasn't their manager. But when he spoke, they listened. Nobody upstairs noticed. Why would they? The CEO didn't even know his name. Not until one night when everything changed. That night, the factory was buzzing louder than usual. A delayed order had caused a production spike, and the day team had left the place in chaos. Grease stains on the floor. Tools scattered. Systems lagging. Most would have sighed, clocked in, and done the bare minimum. Marcus just rolled up his sleeves. He started where he always did, the line inspection. A belt was misaligned. He adjusted it manually, logged it, moved on. A shipment barcode hadn't been scanned. He scanned it and sent a quiet note to inventory control. Nobody asked him to. He just did it. That was Marcus. What he didn't know was that someone was watching. The CEO, James Raines, had decided to walk the floor himself for the first time in years. No cameras. No announcement. Just a quiet stroll through the silent corridors of his own company. He wanted to see the truth. What happened when no one was performing for the bosses? He spotted Marcus almost immediately. Not because of what he said, but because of what he was doing. Everyone else seemed to move around the job. Marcus moved into it. Raines paused behind a row of stacked crates, watching. The worker examined machine readings, made notes in a worn leather notebook. Who even used paper anymore? And checked them against the digital system. He tightened a bolt, stepped back, watched the rotation, nodded slightly. Everything precise. Purposeful. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He glanced at the security cam near the loading dock, frowned, then walked over to the console. He typed something in, watched a loading record flicker, then disappear. It didn't alarm him. It looked like he'd seen this glitch before. The CEO narrowed his eyes. Marcus didn't know it yet, but in that moment, he'd gone from invisible to unforgettable. He returned to his workbench and began sorting a delivery manifest, red penning discrepancies. Quietly, methodically, almost like he was used to cleaning up other people's mistakes. Raines stepped back into the shadows, more intrigued than ever. He came to check on operations. What he found was a man holding the whole floor together with no recognition, no authority, and no visible ego. The next morning, the CEO's assistant received a message she never expected. "Get me everything on the night shift guy in Bay 3. First name Marcus." A week earlier, Marcus had spotted the first red flag. An outgoing shipment's weight was off, just slightly. Most people would have missed it. He didn't. He cross-checked the logs, reweighed the pallets, and found a 12-kilogram discrepancy. Not enough to raise alarms, but enough to stay in his mind. He didn't tell anyone. He just watched. Over the next few nights, it kept happening. Small weight mismatches. Barcodes not scanning properly. Digital entries logged a few minutes after the physical movement, almost like someone was trying to cover their tracks. So he started taking note. Paper notes, separate from the system. Time-stamped. Package numbers. Forklift routes. Then he waited. He noticed a pattern. One employee, late 40s, always hanging back when the others were gone. Friendly during the day, forgettable at night. But Marcus saw it. The way he lingered near unlocked inventory crates. The way he always found a reason to be at the loading dock just before the cameras refreshed. Marcus didn't accuse. He investigated. Quietly, like everything else he did. He used an old terminal no one bothered with, hooked into a secondary log server, and began pulling the timestamp data. The numbers told a story. Certain shipments were being manipulated, materials marked as scrapped, then routed out as if they never existed. It wasn't just sloppiness, it was theft, and it had been going on for months. Marcus documented everything, but instead of going to security or management, he built the case. He knew what would happen if he reported it without proof. Shrugs. Denial. Maybe retaliation. So he kept working, kept watching. Every night, adding more pieces to the puzzle. He stayed late, didn't clock the hours. He installed a magnetic sensor behind one of the shipment doors and rigged it to a silent alarm on his personal device. Not company-sanctioned, but effective. The next night, at 2:47 a.m., it pinged. He walked calmly to the dock. Just as he suspected, the same employee was there, gloves on, opening a container that was supposed to be sealed for external inspection. Marcus took a photo from behind a stack of pallets, noted the exact time, then left without being seen. He'd caught him. But that wasn't enough. The next day, Marcus ran a final system audit using the company's internal software. He traced access logs, compared inventory entries, and matched them to badge swipe. Then he printed it all. Not for show. For leverage. He walked back to work that evening, same as always. But now, he wasn't just maintaining the floor. He was protecting the entire operation. And once again, someone was watching him. This time, with a sharper eye. James Raines had returned. Quietly. No assistants. No board members. Just curiosity, and a creeping sense that he'd underestimated the man he saw last week. He reviewed some preliminary logs that morning, saw Marcus's name flagged several times across inventory access reports. Odd for a night worker. But everything checked out. Too precise to be an accident. Now, standing in a dark corner of the mezzanine, Raines watched the same man move through his shift with calm efficiency, but also with intent. Like he knew something no one else did. Then Raines noticed what Marcus left taped under his workstation. A folder. Unmarked. Just a single sheet visible, printed badge logs. The CEO didn't say a word. He just stared. Everything about Marcus, the silence, the precision, the way he carried himself, clicked into place. Marcus wasn't just a good worker. He was the only one paying attention. And now, he was holding on to something that could expose a rot inside the company no one else even saw. This wasn't luck. It was vigilance. And it wasn't over. The next evening, Marcus was called into a meeting. No notice. No explanation. Just a message on his shift terminal, Office 4B. 7:10 p.m. He walked in to find the CEO waiting alone. Raines didn't waste time. How long have you known? Marcus didn't flinch. 3 weeks. He slid the folder across the table. Inside, timestamps, badge logs, item numbers, camera gaps, side-by-side comparisons of stock reports. Everything airtight. The CEO said nothing for a full minute. Then, why didn't you come forward sooner? Marcus looked him in the eye. Because no one listens to night shift. I needed proof you couldn't ignore. It wasn't arrogance. It was fact. And Raines knew it. By midnight, a plan was in place. Raines authorized a silent alert system and rerouted internal surveillance. The target, a mid-level supervisor and 2 warehouse tech. They'd been moving product through fake returns, hiding inventory losses in damaged goods and selling out the back. Subtle, clean, and entirely invisible, until Marcus noticed the math didn't add up. The trap was set 2 nights later. A mislabeled shipment was tagged and logged under Marcus's ID, but Marcus never touched it. Cameras were patched, exits monitored, and security quietly repositioned. At 2:16 a.m., the suspect team made their move. They used a forged override, lifted the crate, and wheeled it toward the loading bay. The dock opened too easily. They thought they were in the clear. They weren't. Lights snapped on. Security stepped in. The look on the supervisor's face said it all. He thought he was untouchable. And he might have been, if not for Marcus. By morning, the theft ring was shut down. Terminations were swift. Legal followed. HR kept it quiet, but word traveled fast. Someone from night shift had uncovered a scheme that internal audits missed for half a year. Marcus came in that night like he always did. No press. No speech. Just work. But the air was different. People nodded as he walked by. A few stopped him. Thanked him. Supervisors from other departments started asking his opinion on equipment flow. One manager invited him to a logistics strategy call. He declined. Said he had rounds to finish. The CEO didn't let it go unnoticed. Next week, Marcus's name was announced at the company-wide town hall. Not just for catching the theft, but for embodying the kind of leadership people missed because they were too busy looking up the chain to see who was actually holding the floor together. A new role was created, Operations Integrity Lead. Marcus was offered the position on the spot. He didn't smile. He didn't say much. Just nodded and said, "I'll still take night shifts." That was Marcus. Quiet. Relentless. Respected now, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it when no one was watching. And suddenly everyone was. Reason for a couple of seconds. Marcus's quiet revolution rippled through the company long after that fateful night. In the weeks that followed the sting, change was measured not in grand gestures but in the subtle shifts of everyday work. Employees began to speak of his methodical vigilance as a beacon of integrity, each minor adjustment he'd made now viewed as a bold stand against the complacency of routine. Word spread that Marcus had transformed his night shift into something more, an arena where responsibility wasn't defined by a title but by the weight of every decision, every careful recheck of a log. His actions had rewritten the unwritten rules of the workplace. Supervisors who once dismissed his quiet presence now sought his counsel. In breakroom whispers and hurried nods, the message was clear. The overlooked worker could change the very fabric of corporate life. In the midst of this transformation, Marcus remained unfaltering. Every night, he clocked in with the same unassuming determination, fixing what needed fixing, guarding against what could go wrong. His new role as Operations Integrity Lead wasn't a crown of accolades but a tool to amplify the same principles he'd long embodied. With every late-night shift, he mentored younger colleagues, urging them to notice the seemingly insignificant, a misaligned bolt, a displaced shipment, a discrepancy in numbers, showing them that excellence often lay hidden in the details. Even the CEO, James Raines, found himself transformed by what he had witnessed. In quiet moments, he would revisit the evidence of Marcus's silent watchfulness, realizing that leadership was less about commanding attention and more about cultivating it organically. Raines began to endorse policies that recognized and rewarded precision at every level, extending not just to supervisors or managerial staff, but to every individual on the floor. The company's culture evolved into one where vigilance and accountability were celebrated, and where every worker's contribution was seen as essential. The ripple effects were undeniable. With Marcus steering new protocols, audits became rigorous exercises in transparency rather than perfunctory reviews. Employee feedback grew candid. People shared their observations and improvements without fear. The shift was not explosive but steady, like a calm tide that gradually redefines the shoreline. The once ignored night crew now took center stage during meetings, their insights valued as the linchpin of operational success. Marcus's influence wasn't confined to internal processes. His disciplined record-keeping and meticulous monitoring became a case study for departmental training sessions and interoffice workshops. New hires were mentored on the importance of detail and diligence, a reminder that even the quietest role could be pivotal in defending the organization against unseen threats. In this transformed atmosphere, the small acts of care once relegated to routine began to garner the respect they deserved. Every evening, as the lights dimmed on the factory floor, there was a quiet pride in the air. Employees left their posts knowing that their contributions, no matter how small, were the building blocks of something greater. The night shift was no longer a shadowed corner of operations but a vital pulse of the company's heartbeat. With Marcus at the helm, every checkbox and every log entry took on a renewed significance, symbolizing resilience against complacency. Even as the company leaned into its newfound awareness, Marcus's personal journey continued with humble persistence. His nights were still the nights of relentless observation and discreet intervention, but now his work inspired a shared understanding among peers, that integrity was not an abstract ideal but a practical, daily endeavor. In hushed corridors and softly lit aisles, his quiet manner of leadership sparked conversations about change, a willingness to stand against the current, even when no one was watching. Months later, as the CEO reflected on the turbulent changes, a quiet satisfaction surfaced in his mind. The company's progress was tangible, a streamlined operation built on trust and accountability, where even the smallest discrepancy was not overlooked. It wasn't just business as usual, it was a revolution of subtlety and effectiveness. The transformation had begun with one man who refused to fade into the background, challenging everyone to see excellence in every detail. And so, the legacy of the quiet leader was cemented, not through loud declarations or dramatic speeches, but through the integrity of silent actions. Marcus became a symbol of what it meant to truly protect the core of an institution. His work echoed in the routine checks and the vigilant eyes of every employee who had learned to value the details. In that quiet revolution, every small act of responsibility contributed to a collective strength, a testimony to the idea that true leadership often goes unheralded until its impact can no longer be denied. Each night, as employees clocked out under the gentle hum of machinery and flickering lights, there remained an unspoken promise: to carry forward the diligence and honor that Marcus had instilled in them, ensuring that no act of integrity would ever once again be overlooked. Thus, the company not only survived the internal storm but emerged stronger and more unified, reminded that sometimes the most profound change is born from the persistent efforts of a single, unassuming individual. 2 of 2